Day 1, the defeat, the bridge of the Zavari warship. Indomitable shook as another human missile tore through failing shields. Commander Kira Varen gripped the armrests of her command chair, violet fingers white with pressure. Emergency lights bathed everything in crimson. Smoke choked the air. The few surviving crew members fought desperately to keep systems online, their movements frantic against the backdrop of cascading sparks and dying consoles. Her tactical officer turned, face ashen beneath purple skin, shields at 2%, weapons offline, propulsion failing, the young male's voice cracked. "We cannot sustain another hit, Commander." Kira's crimson hair fell across her face as she stared at the view screen. A single human vessel hung against the stars, not even their largest class of warship. Just one destroyer against her fleet of 5 battlecruisers. And it had won. The USS Valiant sat there, hull scarred from battle, but systems fully functional. Waiting. Patient. Like a predator that knew its prey had nowhere left to run. 15 years Kira had commanded Zavari vessels. 15 years without tasting defeat. The Empire had conquered 12 star systems with their superior technology and warrior culture. Their tactics were textbook perfect, refined over centuries of warfare. How could humans, barely a century into interstellar travel, achieve this? The answer burned in her mind like acid. She had watched their pattern during the engagement, watched how that human captain adapted mid-battle, shifting tactics 3 times before her rigid formations could compensate. Zavari doctrine demanded perfection in execution. The humans had chosen chaos and won. Her communications officer spoke quietly. "Commander, they are hailing us." Kira straightened her spine. Even in defeat, a Zavari commander maintained dignity. She brushed her hair back with trembling fingers. On screen, the image shifted. A human male appeared, tall and broad-shouldered, with short dark hair showing hints of gray at the temples. His eyes were steel blue, calm and calculating. He wore a fitted uniform that spoke of military discipline, but his posture suggested something else. Confidence without arrogance, strength without cruelty. "This is Captain Brennan Cole of the USS Valiant." His voice was deep, controlled, carrying weight without volume. "Your fleet has been neutralized. Surrender your vessels and prepare to be boarded." Kira's iridescent eyes met his through the screen. Among her people, ancient tradition offered one path when facing absolute defeat: the protocol of tribute. A defeated commander could preserve a measure of honor by offering themselves into the victor's service, learning from superior tactics to strengthen the Empire upon return. It was meant to ensure Zavari warriors always evolved, always improved. Rarely had it been invoked in modern times. The Empire's expansion had been too successful, their victories too complete. Until now. Kira stood, her ornamental armor gleaming under the emergency lights. Her slender yet muscular form radiated controlled defiance despite the ruins surrounding her. She had one card left to play. "Captain Cole, I am Commander Kira Varen of the Imperial Zavari Fleet." Her voice rang clear, formal, carrying the weight of centuries of tradition. "By the ancient protocols of my people, I offer myself as tribute to the victor. My life and service are yours in exchange for safe passage for my remaining crews." Confusion flickered across Brennan's weathered features before his diplomatic training reasserted control. "Clarify what you are proposing, Commander." Kira lifted her chin. "It is our way. A defeated commander serves the victor, learns their methods, and returns to strengthen the Empire. I would become your subordinate, your student. I would serve aboard your vessel until you deem my education complete." Brennan's first officer leaned into frame, a stern-faced male with hard eyes. "Captain, I advise against this. Standard protocol is to take prisoners for exchange." "Is this some kind of deception?" Brennan asked, studying Kira's face. "No deception." Kira swallowed her pride, the words bitter in her mouth. "It is Zavari honor. To refuse would leave me no choice but ritual suicide, as I have failed my people utterly." The silence stretched. Kira felt her heart hammering against her ribs, felt the eyes of her bridge crew upon her. She had never imagined herself in this position, never conceived that she could lose. Everything she had built, every victory, every commendation, reduced to this moment of abject surrender. "Very well," Brennan's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "I accept your offer, Commander Varen. Prepare to transport to the Valiant in 30 minutes. Your crews will be allowed to withdraw to Empire space unmolested. The transmission ended. Kira exhaled, unaware she had been holding her breath. Her second-in-command approached, his face a mask of shock and shame. Commander, this is not necessary. We could fight to the last, die with honor intact. The decision is made. Kira's voice cracked like a whip. Prepare evacuation protocols. All personnel to escape pods. Return to the Empire and report what transpired here. She turned away before he could argue further. In her quarters, she packed only her ceremonial dagger, symbol of her rank and family lineage. Everything else she left behind. A Zavari tribute carried nothing but their pride and their duty. Standing before the mirror, Kira studied her reflection. Violet skin pale with exhaustion, crimson hair disheveled, armor dented from the battle's violence. She allowed herself one moment of vulnerability, her lips trembling before she forced them into a hard line. I will learn their methods, she whispered to her reflection, find their weaknesses. And when I return to the Empire, we will crush them utterly. It was a vow, a promise to herself and her people. She had no idea how wrong she was. When Kira materialized in the Valiant's transport bay, Captain Brennan Cole stood waiting with a small security detail. 4 armed humans in tactical gear, weapons holstered but hands ready. Professional. Cautious but not hostile. Up close, Brennan was even more imposing than the viewscreen had suggested. Easily 6'3", with the kind of muscular build that came from years of physical discipline. His blue eyes studied her with unsettling directness, measuring, calculating, seeing past her ceremonial submission. Kira went to one knee, bowing her head in the traditional posture of the vanquished. The cold deck plating pressed against her knee. Please, human, show me mercy. The words tasted like poison. I will do anything required of me as your tribute. Brennan stepped forward. His boots entered her downcast field of vision. Then his hand appeared, extended, palm up. On my ship, Commander Veyron, he said firmly. We do not kneel. Kira looked up sharply, confusion breaking through her carefully maintained composure. In Zavari culture, the defeated knelt. Always. It was the natural order, the acknowledgement of superiority. Brennan's hand remained extended. Consider yourself a liaison, not a prisoner. An exchange officer learning our methods while we learn yours. Slowly uncertain, Kira reached up and took his hand. His grip was warm, strong without being crushing. He pulled her to her feet with easy strength. As she rose, their eyes met at nearly equal height. She was tall for a Zavari female. He was average for a human male. Yet in that moment, she felt profoundly off balance. This was not how tribute worked. This was not the natural order. These are your quarters. Brennan gestured to a cabin door as they walked through pristine corridors. Standard officer accommodations. The door slid open. Kira stepped inside and froze. The cabin was spacious, clean, with a real viewport overlooking the stars. A comfortable bunk, a desk with computer access, storage lockers. Ambient lighting that could be adjusted. She had expected a cell, cramped slave quarters at minimum. Instead, she stood in what any junior officer would consider perfectly acceptable living space. I do not understand. She turned to face Brennan, who leaned against the door frame with arms crossed. I am your tribute. Why give me this? Brennan's expression remained neutral. That might be how things work in the Zavari Empire, Commander. But humans do not take slaves or subordinate prisoners when we can avoid it. Exploitation is not our standard operating procedure. Then what am I to you? Kira's violet fingers clenched into fists. You are a representative of your people. An opportunity for mutual learning and knowledge exchange? His eyes held hers, and yes, a valuable intelligence asset. I will not pretend otherwise. But force is not our first approach to gathering information. Kira stepped closer, movements deliberately predatory, testing his reaction. And if I refuse to share intelligence? Brennan did not retreat an inch. Then you refuse. We will respect that choice and proceed accordingly. She stopped mere inches from him, close enough to smell his distinctly human scent. Subtle, clean. Your weakness will be your undoing, Captain. We will see whose approach proves weaker in time, Commander. He pushed off from the doorframe. Rest today. Tomorrow, Lieutenant Ashford will show you around the ship and explain your duties. We operate on a standard 24-hour cycle. Meals are served in the main mess at 0600, 1200, and 1800 hours. You are expected to attend. After he left, Kira paced the cabin like a caged predator. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. Where was the gloating, the humiliation, the exploitation of her total defeat? This treatment felt worse somehow, as though her surrender meant so little they could not be bothered to properly subjugate her. She would watch, learn, find the weakness in their apparent strength, and then she would return home and help the Empire destroy them. Day 2. Cultural shock. The next morning arrived with the gentle chime of an automated alarm. Kira had barely slept, hyper-aware of her surroundings, waiting for the other boot to drop. It never did. At precisely 0600 hours, Lieutenant Garrett Ashford arrived at her door. He was tall, lean, with dark skin and sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. His uniform was crisp, his bearing military professional. Commander Veron, his acknowledgement was stiff but not hostile. The captain has assigned you to tactical analysis. Your knowledge of Zavari weapon systems could help us improve our defenses while you observe our methods. You expect me to help you develop weapons against my own people? Kira raised an eyebrow. Garrett's expression did not change. I expect you to follow the arrangement you yourself proposed, Commander. If you are here to learn our ways, then participate. Or was your surrender just theater? The challenge stung Kira's warrior pride. She followed Garrett through the Valiant's quarters, acutely aware of the stares from human crew members. Some looked curious, others hostile. One man in particular watched her with undisguised contempt. A broad-shouldered security officer with cold eyes and a face carved from granite. Chief Declan Hayes does not approve of your presence. Garrett followed her gaze. His younger sister was on the USS Jakarta when Zavari forces destroyed it last year. 47 crew members killed. No survivors. We were at war. Kira said it simply, stating fact. And now we are not. Garrett's tone remained neutral. That is progress, Commander, whether you choose to see it that way or not. In the tactical analysis bay, Kira observed human crew members working. The scene was chaos by Zavari standards. Unlike Empire ships where orders flowed strictly top to bottom, here she witnessed animated discussions between officers and enlisted personnel. A young technician, barely past his teens, openly challenged a senior engineer's assessment of a weapons targeting algorithm. The senior engineer listened, actually considered the input, then adopted a modified version of the young man's approach. Your chain of command is chaotic, Kira commented to Garrett. No discipline. We value input from all levels. Good ideas can come from anywhere, Commander. Rigid hierarchy can blind you to solutions your subordinates see clearly. Kira said nothing, but she filed the observation away. Day 3. The mess hall, breakfast in the main mess hall, was an education in American military culture. Kira sat alone initially, her violet skin and ornamental armor marking her as obviously alien among the sea of human faces. The conversations around her hushed as she entered, then gradually resumed at lower volume. She had just begun analyzing the strange human food when Captain Brennan appeared, tray in hand. May I join you, Commander? It is your ship, Captain. Brennan sat across from her with easy informality that would have scandalized a Zavari command hierarchy. On the Indomitable, the captain ate in private quarters, maintaining proper distance from subordinates. How are you finding your first days aboard? Brennan bit into an apple, the gesture casual. Confusing, Kira admitted. Your crew operates with little apparent discipline, yet achieves results. Your chain of command is unclear. Your captain eats in common areas. Nothing functions as I was taught. Command should function. Brennan smiled slightly. Different does not mean undisciplined. We emphasize initiative and adaptation over rigid hierarchy. Every crew member is trained to think independently, to question assumptions, to offer solutions regardless of rank. Is that how you defeated my fleet? Kira leaned forward. Adaptation? He considered her question seriously. Partly. Your tactics were textbook perfect, which made them predictable. We studied Zavari engagement patterns, identified the doctrine behind them, and exploited the rigidity. Once we disrupted your planned formations, you struggled to adjust. The observation hit Kira like a physical blow. The Zavari prided themselves on perfection in executing established strategies. The idea that such perfection could be a weakness had never occurred to her. Day 4. Training. Lieutenant Ashford challenged Kira to a training match in the ship's gymnasium. Word spread quickly through the crew. By the time they faced each other on the padded mat, A small crowd had gathered. Ashford was good, quick, technically proficient, moving with the confidence of someone who had spent years mastering human combat systems. But Kira had been trained since childhood in Zavari martial arts. Her people were naturally stronger than humans, their reflexes honed by generations of warrior culture. The match lasted 43 seconds. Kira swept Ashford's legs, flipped him with a precise hip throw, and had him pinned before he could recover. The watching crew members murmured, impressed despite their reservations about the Zavari commander. "Your technique is excellent." Kira offered Ashford a hand up. "But you telegraph your intentions with your shoulders. A trained opponent can read your next move before you execute it." Ashford accepted her hand, no shame in his expression at being defeated. "Could you teach me to correct that?" The request surprised her. In Zavari culture, a defeated opponent would never ask for instruction from the victor so casually. Yet Ashford's question carried genuine interest, professional respect rather than submission. "I could." Kira found herself agreeing, "if you wish to learn." Over the next hour, she walked several crew members through Zavari combat theory. The techniques adapted poorly to human physiology in some ways, but the underlying principles of reading opponent movement and controlling engagement distance translated well. Chief Hayes watched from the sidelines, his expression conflicted. When Kira demonstrated a disarming technique, she caught his eye and saw something shift. Not approval exactly, but a crack in the absolute hatred. Day 5. The coolant crisis. The ship's alarm shattered the quiet of the night cycle. Kira jerked awake, military training overriding disorientation. Red lights flashed in her cabin. The deck vibrated with sudden urgency. She dressed in seconds, moving to the corridor. Lieutenant Ashford was already coordinating crew response. "What is happening? Engineering emergency. Main coolant loop compromised. Superheated plasma leak." His face was tight with controlled fear. "If we cannot contain it in the next 3 minutes, it will breach the reactor housing." Kira followed him to engineering without being asked. They arrived to find controlled chaos. Crew members swarmed around a massive conduit that glowed angry orange, heat shimmer distorting the air around it. Automated systems were failing. Manual intervention required. Captain Brennan stood in the center of the crisis, listening to rapid-fire status reports from his chief engineer. His uniform jacket hung on a nearby railing, sleeves already rolled up. The casual formality Kira had observed over meals was gone. This was Brennan Cole in crisis mode, every movement purposeful and economical. "Primary coolant pump is seized." A female engineer pointed to schematics. "If we do not vent the excess heat in the next 4 minutes, the plasma will breach containment. At this temperature, it will burn through 3 decks before we can evacuate those sections." Brennan studied the schematic for exactly 3 seconds. "We need to manually engage the secondary bypass valve." His finger traced a path through the ship's guts. "Here." The chief engineer's face went pale. "Captain, that valve is in the radiation zone. Current exposure levels would be fatal in under 2 minutes. Then we move fast." Brennan grabbed a radiation suit from the emergency locker. "Sir, I volunteer." The chief engineer stepped forward. "You should not risk yourself for a task I can perform." Brennan was already sealing the suit. "How many times have you run this bypass procedure, Chief?" "Never, sir. It has always been automated. I ran it 17 times during my service on the carrier constellation." Brennan's voice carried absolute calm, including twice under combat damage conditions. "I am the most qualified person on this ship for this specific task. That is not ego speaking, Chief. That is operational reality." He turned to his first officer. "If I am not back in 90 seconds, vent the entire section to space and seal bulkheads." "Understood?" "Understood, Captain." Kira watched, stunned, as Brennan Cole entered the radiation zone through a reinforced hatch. The temperature readout on the wall climbed steadily. 90 seconds began counting down on the emergency display. A Zavari commander would never do this. The words escaped her before she could stop them. Ashford glanced at her. A Zavari commander would send someone else? A Zavari commander would never risk themselves for a task subordinates could perform. It is inefficient. Command hierarchy exists for precisely this reason. 60 seconds. Captain Cole believes good leaders do not ask their people to take risks they would not take themselves. Ashford's eyes remained fixed on the hatch. It is one of his core principles. He has risked his life for this crew more times than I can count. 45 seconds. But if he is injured, if he dies, Kira heard the uncertainty in her own voice. The ship loses its captain, its tactical center. Then his crew would step up as they are trained to do. Ashford's jaw was tight. That is the difference between your culture and ours, Commander. You see hierarchy as strength. We see interconnection. Every person on this ship is trained to assume command if necessary. The captain knows this, trusts this. 30 seconds. The temperature gauge peaked. Alarms screamed. Every person in engineering held their breath. 20 seconds. The hatch burst open. Brennan stumbled out, radiation suit smoking. Two crew members caught him, stripping off the contaminated suit with practiced speed. Behind him, the temperature readout began dropping. Rapidly. The bypass valve had engaged. The crisis was over. Brennan had minor radiation burns on his forearms, nothing serious. The medical officer treated him on site while his crew secured the coolant system. Within minutes, normal operations resumed. But Kira could not resume normal thought. She stood to the side, watching the aftermath, watching how the crew looked at their captain, not with fear of his authority, with respect for his courage, with loyalty earned through shared risk. That night, Kira lay awake in her quarters, replaying the day's events. The human approach was so alien to everything she had been taught about command, about strength, about the natural order of superior and subordinate. Yet it had defeated her fleet. A disturbing thought crystallized in her mind. What if everything the Zavari Empire taught about power was incomplete? What if there were forms of strength her people had never considered? She pushed the thought away, but it returned, persistent, undeniable. Day 12, the rescue mission. The Valiant received a distress call from a civilian transport vessel. Life support was failing. Survivors were trapped in forward compartments with oxygen running out. Time to catastrophic failure. 40 minutes. Brennan called Kira to the bridge. Commander Veron, you are leading this rescue operation. I will provide support, but the tactical decisions are yours. Kira blinked. You trust me to lead? I am choosing to trust you? Yes. Brennan's expression was serious. This is your opportunity to demonstrate that my trust is not misplaced. 23 civilians are counting on us. What are your orders? Kira's mind raced. She pulled up the transport schematics, analyzing structural damage and access points. Her Zavari tactical training merged with what she had observed of human adaptability over the past 12 days. We need a two-team approach. She pointed to the display. Primary team enters here, through the damaged cargo bay. They move quickly, locate survivors, and prepare them for emergency transport. Secondary team here, at the engineering access port. They work to restore minimal life support, buying us additional time if the primary extraction encounters delays. Brennan nodded. Solid plan. Who do you want on your teams? Kira designated personnel. Garrett Ashford would lead the secondary team with 2 engineers. She would take primary, with 3 human security officers and Chief Hayes. Hayes objected immediately. Permission to speak freely, Captain. Granted, I request reassignment. Hayes's face was stone. I cannot trust the commander with my life or the lives of civilians. Brennan looked to Kira. Commander, how do you respond? Kira met Hayes's hostile stare directly. Chief Hayes, your sister died when Zavari forces destroyed the Jakarta. You blame all Zavari for that loss, and you are correct to do so. We were at war. We showed no mercy. She stepped closer. But 23 humans are dying right now. If you cannot trust me as a person, trust that I need to prove myself worthy of the authority Captain Cole has given me. I will not fail this mission. I cannot fail it, the moment stretched. Then Hayes gave a single sharp nod. Understood, Commander. I will follow your orders. The rescue operation launched within 8 minutes. Kira's team reached the crippled transport to find conditions worse than projected. Debris blocked the main corridor to the forward compartments. Life support had failed completely. Oxygen levels were critical. Kira assessed the blockage. Heavy steel beams, twisted and compressed by the initial damage. A human crew could not move them without heavy equipment. Equipment they did not have time to deploy. She gripped the largest beam, setting her feet. Zavari physiology granted her considerable strength advantage over humans. She pulled, muscles straining, violet skin flushing darker with effort. The beam shifted, groaned, moved. Hayes and the others immediately helped, working the gap she created. Together, they cleared a path large enough to squeeze through. Kira went first, emerging into the forward compartment to find 23 terrified civilians huddled together, oxygen masks barely functioning. "We are here to help." Kira's voice carried calm authority. "Emergency transport will extract you. Remain calm and follow instructions precisely." As they began moving civilians back through the debris field, a secondary collapse began. A bulkhead groaned, metal shrieking. Kira saw it instantly. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, frozen in fear directly under the buckling ceiling. Kira moved. Pure instinct. She reached the child, grabbed her, and threw herself backward as the bulkhead came down. Kira twisted mid-fall, her armored body taking the impact of a smaller support beam. It struck her shoulder, pain flaring, but her armor absorbed most of the force. The girl was unharmed, crying but alive. Hayes pulled them both clear. "You saved her." His voice carried shock. Kira pushed herself up, shoulder aching. "Of course. She is a child." They completed the extraction with 90 seconds to spare. All 23 civilians survived. Minor injuries only. As the transport teams returned to the Valiant, Kira found herself surrounded by grateful humans, touching her arms, thanking her, treating her like a hero instead of a defeated enemy. It felt strange, wrong, right. She could not sort her emotions. In the aftermath, Captain Brennan found her in the tactical bay reviewing the mission data. "Well done, Commander." Those two simple words carried weight. Kira looked up from her screen. "I only did what was necessary. You did more than that. You prioritized human lives over your own safety." Brennan's voice was quiet. "That matters, Kira." It was the first time he had used her given name. The intimacy of it struck her unexpectedly. Chief Hayes approached, his usual hostility muted. "Commander Veyron." A word. Kira turned, bracing for confrontation. Instead, Hayes extended his hand. "You protected those civilians, including that girl. My sister Emily would have done the same." He met her eyes. "Thank you." Kira took his hand, the gesture still foreign but meaningful. "You are welcome, Chief Hayes." As Hayes departed, Kira returned to her analysis. But her focus was scattered. She pulled up long-range sensor logs from the past 3 years, data Brennan had granted her access to after the rescue mission's success. And there, buried in the background noise of dozens of engagements, she found it. Spatial anomalies. Tiny tears in normal space, barely detectable, appearing during multiple fleet actions. Not human technology, not Zavarai, something else entirely. Kira's blood ran cold as she traced the pattern. These anomalies appeared before battles, during battles, after battles. They appeared near colonies that later sent distress calls. They appeared in sectors where ships simply vanished. She pulled up more data, going back further. The anomalies had been increasing in frequency over 3 years, growing larger, more persistent. Someone or something had been present during all those engagements, watching, or worse. Kira stood abruptly, her chair scraping across the deck. She needed to show this to Brennan. Immediately. This was not about Zavari versus human anymore. This was about something far worse. She found him in his ready room, reviewing casualty reports from the transport rescue. "Captain Cole, I have discovered something in the sensor data, something you need to see." Brennan looked up, reading the urgency in her expression. "Show me." Kira transferred her analysis to his display. These spatial anomalies appear in classified records dating back 3 years. They correlate with unexplained ship disappearances, colony distress calls, and sensor malfunctions. She highlighted the pattern. "This is not natural. This is not human or Zavari technology. What is this?" Brennan's face went carefully blank. "Where did you find this data, Commander?" "You granted me access to tactical archives after today's mission. I was analyzing engagement patterns and found these recurring signatures in the background, sensor readings." She leaned forward. "You already know about this. You have been tracking it." The silence stretched for long seconds. Then Brennan sighed, the weight of classified knowledge evident in his expression. "Yes, we have been tracking it." He pulled up additional files, ones she had not accessed. "We call them spatial tears, and what comes through them, we call the Voidborn." The screen filled with classified footage, darkness that moved with purpose, geometric patterns shifting across surfaces, colonies reduced to ash and crystalline structures, ships that simply ceased to exist. Kira felt her mouth go dry. How long have you known? 3 years since the first confirmed encounter. 47 colonies destroyed. Hundreds of ships lost. Brennan met her eyes. And the phenomenon is spreading, Commander Varen. Based on current expansion rates and directional vectors, the Voidborn are heading directly towards Zavari space. They will reach your Empire's outer colonies within 6 months. Everything Kira thought she understood about the war, about the human presence in Zavari territory, about her own defeat, suddenly shifted into a new and terrifying context. This was not about conquest. This was about survival, and her people had no idea what was coming for them. Part 2, The Real Enemy Day. 15 Investigation. The classified data scrolled across Kira's screen in her quarters, each file deepening the chill in her veins. 3 days had passed since Brennan revealed the Voidborn's existence. 3 days of analyzing every scrap of intelligence the Valiant possessed. 3 days of connecting dots that formed a nightmare pattern. She worked through the night cycles, subsisting on minimal sleep and the bitter human beverage they called coffee. The crew had noticed. Garrett Ashford had commented twice on her appearance. She ignored him. This was too important. Kira overlaid 27 separate incident reports on her tactical display. Ship disappearances, colony distress calls cut short, sensor anomalies that defied conventional physics. Each incident marked with timestamp and coordinates. When she filtered by date, the pattern emerged with horrifying clarity. The spatial terrors were not random. They followed a progression, a methodical expansion across charted space, moving in a direction that would intersect Zavari territory within 6 months, exactly as Brennan had said. But there was more, something the human analyst had missed. Kira isolated the energy signatures from each tear, ran them through Zavari spectral analysis algorithms that human technology lacked. The results made her stomach clench. These tears were not natural phenomena. They were deliberately created, precisely calibrated, following mathematical progressions that suggested intelligence, purpose, strategy. The Voidborn were not just consuming worlds. They were hunting, and they had been present during her fleet's engagement with the Valiant. She pulled up the battle logs from 2 weeks ago, her own defeat, examining the background sensor data frame by frame. There, a microscopic spatial fluctuation, barely detectable, occurring exactly when her flagship's shields failed. Another fluctuation when her tactical systems experienced that inexplicable lag that cost her the targeting solution. The Voidborn had been watching that battle, possibly interfering with it. Kira stood abruptly, the chair clattering behind her. She gathered her data files and headed for the bridge. It was 0300 hours, deep in the ship's night cycle. She did not care. Brennan was in his ready room as she had suspected. The man seemed to sleep even less than she did. He looked up as she entered without requesting permission, his blue eyes sharp despite the late hour. "Captain Cole, we need to talk. Now." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Kira remained standing, transferring her analysis to his display with sharp, angry motions. "You told me the Voidborn had been active for 3 years. You told me 47 colonies destroyed. What you did not tell me is that they have been systematically targeting military engagements." She pulled up her findings. These spatial tears appeared during fleet actions. Not after. During. They are studying us, Captain, learning our tactics, our weapons, our weaknesses. Brennan leaned forward, studying her data with intense focus. His jaw tightened as he processed the implications. "You found this in our raw sensor logs? Your analysts filtered for macro-level anomalies." "I looked at quantum fluctuations using Zavari analysis protocols." She pointed to a specific signature. "This pattern here appears in 14 separate engagements over the past year, including the battle where you defeated my fleet." Brennan's face went pale. "You are saying the Voidborn observed our engagement?" "I am saying they may have influenced it." Kira pulled up the specific timestamps. "My shield failure occurred simultaneously with a spatial fluctuation. My tactical computer lag, same thing. Small interventions. Subtle, but enough to tip the balance in a closely matched engagement." "Why would they do that?" Brennan stood, pacing his small office. "Why interfere in our conflicts? To see how we fight, to identify threats before they consume us." Kira's voice was cold, analytical, pushing emotion aside to focus on tactical reality. Captain, the Voidborn are not mindless. They are strategic. They are preparing. For what? For whatever comes next. Kira met his eyes, and my empire has dismissed every report of these phenomena as sensor malfunctions or human deception. We are completely unprepared. Our weapons, our tactics, our entire military doctrine, none of it will work against an enemy like this. Brennan was quiet for a long moment, the weight of command evident in his expression. Then we need concrete proof, something undeniable. The Zavari Empire will not accept theoretical analysis from a human vessel or a commander they consider compromised. Kira nodded slowly. Show me a site. A colony the Voidborn destroyed. I need to see it firsthand. Analyze the devastation pattern. Collect physical samples. That is dangerous, Commander. We do not fully understand what the Voidborn leave behind. Two of our science teams have been lost investigating residue. Direct contact with the crystalline structures appears to cause molecular disruption at the cellular level. Then I will take appropriate precautions. Kira's violet eyes held steady. But I must see this with my own eyes, Captain. I must have evidence that will convince even the most skeptical Zavari commander. Theory is not enough. I need proof I can hold in my hands. Brennan studied her face for several seconds. Then he activated his communicator. Bridge, set course for the new Texas colony site. Best possible speed. The navigator's voice crackled back. Sir, that site is still under quarantine. Approach is restricted by Space Command directive. I am aware, Ensign. Execute the order. Aye, Captain. Brennan turned back to Kira. We arrive in 18 hours. I suggest you use that time to rest, Commander. You look exhausted. Kira allowed herself a thin smile. I will rest when the Zavari Empire is warned, Captain. Not before. Day 16, the colony. The Valiant dropped out of FTL at the edge of the new Texas system exactly 18 hours later. Kira stood on the bridge, watching the view screen as the planet came into view. What she saw made her breath catch. The world below had been beautiful once. Terraformed grasslands, 3 major settlements, agricultural zones that fed half a dozen nearby systems. Now it was a charred ruin painted in geometric patterns of destruction. From orbit, the devastation looked almost artistic. Perfect circles of scorched earth, precise hexagonal zones where buildings had been reduced to molecular ash, crystalline formations growing in spiraling fractals across what had been fertile farmland. Nothing about the destruction was natural. Nothing was random. Captain, I am reading residual energy signatures across the entire primary continent. Lieutenant Ashford worked his sensor station. Radiation levels are elevated but not lethal. Atmospheric composition has been altered. Higher concentrations of exotic particles we cannot identify. Life signs? Brennan asked, though his tone suggested he knew the answer. Negative, sir. No human life signs detected anywhere on the planet. Kira felt a chill run through her. 40,000 colonists had lived here. Now there was nothing but geometric silence. Prepare a landing party. Brennan's voice was grim. Full environmental suits. Dr. Aldrich, you are with us. Commander Veron, Lieutenant Ashford, Chief Hayes, we touch down in 20 minutes. The shuttle descent was silent, each person lost in their own thoughts. Kira checked her environmental suit seals 3 times. She had reviewed every report on voidborne residue. The black crystalline structures were deadly on direct contact. Molecular disruption at the cellular level. Death in seconds. They landed at what had been New Texas's Central Plaza. Through her helmet visor, Kira saw buildings reduced to skeletal frameworks, streets buckled and twisted. The remains of vehicles fused to pavement in impossible configurations. And everywhere, the black crystals. They grew from the ground like malignant flowers, their surfaces absorbing light, creating shadows that seemed to move with deliberate menace. Geometric perfection that violated every natural law Kira understood. Dr. Rebecca Aldrich, the Valiant's lead scientist, immediately began taking readings. A woman in her 40s with sharp intelligence evident in every economical movement. Fascinating. These crystal structures are growing slowly, but measurably. They are converting the remaining matter around them into more of themselves. At what rate? Kira approached one of the formations, careful not to touch. Approximately 0.03 millimeters per hour. At this rate, the entire colony site will be converted to crystal within 5 years. Kira pulled out her Zavari scanner, running molecular analysis. The readings made no sense. The crystal's atomic structure shifted moment to moment, never settling into a stable configuration. It existed in quantum superposition, simultaneously solid and something else entirely. This is not matter as we understand it. Kira recorded the data carefully. It is something transitional, something between states of existence. Brennan stood beside her, his presence steady and reassuring despite the nightmare landscape around them. What does that mean, Commander? It means the Voidborn do not destroy matter. They convert it, transform it into something we lack the physics to comprehend. Kira moved to another crystal formation, taking additional readings. Captain, I need samples. Properly contained, these could provide the key to understanding Voidborn composition. And if we understand their composition, we might find a weakness. Aldrich looked up sharply. Commander, I must advise against that. Every attempt to contain these crystals has resulted in catastrophic failure. They destabilize any conventional storage matrix within hours. Then we use unconventional storage. Kira pulled a Zavari quantum stasis pod from her equipment pack. This technology suspends matter in temporal stasis. The crystal cannot grow or react if time is frozen around it. That is theoretically sound. Aldrich's skepticism warred with scientific curiosity, but the risk is substantial. If the stasis field fails, even for a microsecond, the crystal could begin converting the containment vessel itself. Everything worth doing involves risk, Doctor. Kira carefully maneuvered a small crystal fragment into the stasis pod using remote manipulators. The pod sealed with a hiss, quantum fields engaging. The crystal inside froze mid-shimmer, locked in temporal suspension. Sample secured. They continued exploring the ruins. Kira documented everything with meticulous precision. The geometric patterns of destruction, the way certain materials had been completely consumed while others remained untouched, the absence of any organic remains, as though every living thing had been absorbed without trace. In what had been the colony's administrative center, they found functioning terminals. Emergency power still flickered in backup systems. Brennan accessed the colony's final transmission logs while Kira examined the building's structural damage. The pattern was deliberate, precise. The Voidborn had not simply attacked. They had harvested, methodically stripped the colony of resources, converting everything into that impossible crystalline residue. Kira. Brennan's voice cut through her analysis. You need to see this. She moved to his terminal. He played back the colony administrator's final transmission. A terrified human male, face slick with sweat, screaming into the camera. Something is coming through spatial tears near the outer settlements. Not Zavari ships, not human vessels. Something else. They are absorbing everything. Metal, organics, energy. Our weapons have no effect. Nothing stops them. Please send help. Send anyone. They are coming through the walls now. They are... The transmission cut to static. Brennan played orbital footage next. Satellite imagery showing the Voidborn arrival. Darkness spreading across the colony in geometric patterns, consuming everything in its path. The timestamp showed the entire colony fell in under 4 hours. Kira felt her hands trembling inside her suit gloves. 4 hours, 40,000 people, gone without trace. Show me Zavari weapon effectiveness data. Her voice was hollow. You have engaged the Voidborn. Show me what happened when you fought them. Brennan pulled up combat footage from a human destroyer's encounter 6 months prior. The ship had detected a Voidborn incursion and engaged with full weapons. Missiles, energy weapons, kinetic rounds. Everything humanity could throw at the entity. The Voidborn had absorbed it all, converted the energy into growth, expanding faster with each attack. The destroyer barely escaped. Kira ran the footage through Zavari tactical simulations, overlaying her Empire's standard weapons loadout. The results were unequivocal. Zavari plasma cannons would be even less effective than human missiles. The super-hot plasma would simply feed the Voidborn's conversion process, accelerating their growth. Her people's greatest weapons were useless. We are defenseless. The words escaped her as a whisper. The entire Zavari military doctrine is built around overwhelming firepower, energy saturation, and it will do nothing but make them stronger. That is why we need allies, Kira. Brennan's hand rested briefly on her armored shoulder. Why we were in your space seeking cooperation instead of conquest. Alone, neither of our peoples can survive this. Together, we might find an answer. As they prepared to return to the shuttle, the building groaned, ancient damage finally giving way. Support beams buckled with shrieking metal. The ceiling began collapsing in a cascade of debris. Kira saw it first. A massive beam falling directly toward Brennan, who was focused on downloading the final data logs. No time to shout a warning, only time to act. She tackled him, her Zavari strength driving them both clear of the impact zone. They hit the ground hard, rolling, Kira's body covering his as wreckage crashed down where he had been standing a heartbeat before. Dust filled the air. Alarms wailed inside their suits. They lay there for a frozen moment, Kira on top of Brennan, their helmet visors mere inches apart. "You saved my life." Brennan's voice was quiet over the comm. Instinct. Kira pushed herself up, offering him a hand. "Or perhaps I am simply protecting my investment in this alliance, Captain." Their gloved hands clasped. Brennan pulled himself to his feet. "Whatever the reason, thank you, Commander." The moment hung between them, weighted with meaning neither fully acknowledged. Then Ashford's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, are you injured? Structural collapse detected in your sector." "We are unharmed, Lieutenant. Returning to the shuttle now." Day 19. Confrontation. The flight back to the Valiant was silent. Kira clutched the stasis pod containing the crystal sample, her mind racing through analysis and implications. She had proof now. Physical evidence and data logs that even the most skeptical Zavari commander could not dismiss. But how to deliver that proof to her people? The answer came 3 days later, announced by proximity alarms screaming across the Valiant's bridge. 3 Zavari warships decloaked directly ahead. Kira recognized the lead vessel immediately. The Sovereign, flagship of High Commander Dax Ven, her former superior, a rigid traditionalist who viewed any deviation from Zavari doctrine as weakness. "They found us." Kira's voice was flat. "How?" Brennan studied the tactical display. "They have been searching for you, Commander." This was inevitable. "Incoming transmission," Ashford reported. On screen. Dax Ven's face filled the view screen. A male Zavari with steel-gray hair and ritual scars across purple features, marking him as a warrior of the old traditions. His eyes widened slightly, seeing Kira standing beside Brennan's command chair. "So the reports are true. Our once honored Commander Veyron now stands with humans like a trained pet." His voice dripped contempt. Kira stepped forward. "High Commander Ven, there is critical information about a threat to the Empire. I request permission to—" Silence. Ven cut her off with a sharp gesture. "You will return to Imperial custody immediately to face court-martial for abandoning your fleet. The human vessel will transfer all intelligence gathered during your service." Brennan rose from his chair. "High Commander, we have evidence of an existential threat to both our peoples. Before any discussion of custody or surrender, I strongly suggest we share this information." Ven's expression did not change. "You have 1 hour to transfer Commander Veyron to our vessel. After that, we will take her by force, and we will take your ship's tactical core as well. Consider this your only warning." The transmission ended. "Options, people." Brennan looked to his officers. "We cannot fight 3 Zavari cruisers, sir." Ashford's assessment was grim. "Their combined firepower outmatches us 8-1. If they attack, we will be destroyed within minutes." Kira studied the tactical display, her mind working through scenarios at combat speed. "Ven will not listen to reason. He is too invested in Zavari superiority." She turned to Brennan. "But he will listen to evidence that appears to give him an advantage. Evidence that supports his worldview." "What are you proposing?" Brennan's eyes narrowed. "I will return to the Sovereign." Kira's voice was steady, certain. "I will take the Voidborn sample and transmit tactical data on the Valiant's defensive systems as a show of cooperation. Once aboard, I will convince Ven's Science Division to analyze the sample. When they confirm the threat, he will have no choice but to accept the reality of the situation." Chief Hayes spoke up from his security station. "With respect, Commander, the moment you board that ship, they will arrest you. Court-martial. Possible execution. This could be a one-way trip." "Possibly." Kira met his gaze. "But my people need to be warned. If my arrest is the price of that warning, I will pay it gladly." Brennan crossed the bridge to stand before her. "And the tactical data you mentioned transmitting?" His voice was low, meant only for her. Kira leaned closer, speaking too quietly for others to hear. I will send shield frequencies and weapons configurations that appear accurate, but are actually offset by 0.3%. Enough to seem legitimate to cursory analysis, but useless in actual combat. You are proposing to deceive your superior officer. I am proposing to save my people from their own pride. Kira held his gaze. Do you trust me, Captain? The question hung between them. The bridge crew watched without appearing to watch, sensing the gravity of the moment. Brennan's blue eyes searched her violet ones. Yes, Commander, I trust you. Those 3 words struck Kira with unexpected force. No Zavari commander had ever said such a thing to her. Trust was not given, it was assumed through hierarchy, enforced through discipline. But Brennan offered it freely, a gift that carried more weight than any order. Then let me do this, she straightened. Prepare a shuttle and the Voidborn sample. I will need 1 hour to compile the tactical data transmission. 40 minutes later, Kira stood in the Valiant's shuttle bay, securing the stasis pod into a quantum-locked container. Brennan had insisted on the additional security measure. If Ven's forces tried to open the container improperly, it would destabilize and destroy the sample rather than risk exposure. Brennan entered the bay as she completed the final checks. His expression was controlled, but tension showed in the set of his shoulders. The tactical data is ready for transmission. He handed her a data chip. This contains the information you selected, along with some additional files that might prove useful. Kira took the chip. What additional files? Intelligence on Voidborn encounters, unedited footage, casualty reports. Everything we have, he met her eyes. If you need more ammunition to convince them, use it all. She nodded, pocketing the chip. Her hand brushed against his, the touch lingering a fraction longer than necessary. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Kira cut him off. I know Ven's tactics, his psychology. I can manipulate this situation. But if it does go wrong, Brennan stepped closer. If they do not listen, if they arrest you or worse, then you continue the mission. Warn whichever Zavari commanders will listen. Form alliances where you can. She forced herself to hold his gaze. The threat is bigger than any one person. Captain, even me. Brennan was quiet for a moment. Then with deliberate formality, he extended his hand. Good luck, Commander Veyron. Kira clasped his hand, feeling the warmth of his grip through her glove. Thank you for showing me a different way, Captain Cole, for teaching me that strength can exist without domination. She released his hand and boarded the shuttle before emotion could compromise her resolve. As the shuttle bay doors opened to reveal the waiting Zavari vessels, Kira allowed herself one last look at the Valiant, at Brennan standing alone in the bay, watching her leave. Then she sealed the shuttle and launched. The flight to the Sovereign took 12 minutes. Kira used the time to compose herself, settling into the cold, professional demeanor expected of Zavari military command. She transmitted the tactical data as agreed, watching the confirmation receipt appear on her console. The Sovereign's tractor beam locked on, pulling her shuttle into their bay. Armed guards waited as the hatch opened. 12 warriors in full combat armor, plasma rifles ready. Commander Veyron, the guard captain's voice was flat. You will accompany us to the High Commander's presence. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. I am here voluntarily, Captain. Kira descended the shuttle ramp carrying the sample container. I have information vital to the Empire's survival. They escorted her through corridors she knew well. She had served on the Sovereign years ago as a junior tactical officer. The ship smelled the same, felt the same, but she was different now, changed by weeks among humans who valued input over obedience. High Commander Ven waited in his strategy chamber, surrounded by senior officers. He regarded Kira with cold disdain as the guards positioned her before his command table. The mighty Kira Veyron, reduced to a human collaborator. Ven's voice carried theatrical contempt for the benefit of his officers. Was your defeat so unbearable that you betrayed everything our people stand for? Kira stood straight, refusing to show weakness. I have not betrayed our people, High Commander. I bring warning of a threat greater than anything the Empire has faced. She placed the sample container on the table. This contains physical evidence. Your science division will confirm what human intelligence already knows. An entity called the Voidborn is consuming worlds systematically, and we are directly in its path. Ven examined the container without touching it, his expression skeptical. And this tactical data you transmitted, a convenient gift to prove your loyalty, a necessary one. Kira kept her voice level. You would not have permitted my return otherwise. The data demonstrates human defensive capabilities. But more importantly, High Commander, it shows their limitations. Information you can use to the Empire's advantage should cooperation prove impossible. A junior officer approached, bowing. High Commander, our initial scans of the human vessel match the tactical data Commander Veyron provided. Their shield frequencies and weapon configurations are as she described. The analysis appears legitimate. Ven nodded in satisfaction. Have the Science Division examine this sample, confirm or deny the threat it represents. Meanwhile, prepare boarding parties. He turned to Kira with predatory satisfaction. We will seize the human vessel and its captain. Their technology will serve the Empire. Kira felt her carefully constructed plan crumbling. That was not our agreement, High Commander. There was no agreement. Ven's voice turned harsh. You are a defeated commander who provided intelligence on an enemy. We will exploit that intelligence as we see fit. The humans are beneath us. Alliance with them would contaminate Zavari purity. Even if the Voidborn threat is real, even if alliance is our only chance of survival, if the threat exists, we will face it as we face all challenges. With Zavari's strength, alone. Ven gestured to the guards. Remove her to secure quarters until this operation is complete. As the guards reached for her arms, the ship's alarms suddenly blared. Red lights strobed. The tactical officer called out urgently. High Commander, the human vessel's weapons are active. They are targeting our shield generators with precision fire. Impossible. Ven whirled on the tactical display. We have their exact shield frequencies and weapons configurations. The Sovereign shuddered as precise fire struck vulnerable points. Points that were real weaknesses, not the false ones Kira had transmitted. You deceived us. Ven's face twisted with rage. You transmitted false data. Kira smiled coldly. I learned strategy from humans, High Commander. They taught me that rigid doctrine is weakness, that adaptation is strength. The ship rocked again. Chaos erupted as the Sovereign's weapon systems went offline, disabled by surgical strikes that avoided causing catastrophic damage. The Valiant was neutralizing their combat capability without killing the crew. Kira moved before the guards could react. 3 years of Zavari combat training merged with techniques she had learned sparring with human crew members. She disarmed the nearest guard with a precise strike, used his momentum to throw him into his companion. Her hand found the controls for the sample container, securing it against her chest. Then she ran. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel. Emergency bulkheads began sealing. Kira's knowledge of Sovereign-class ship layouts guided her through the maze of corridors toward the auxiliary hangar bay. Guards pursued, but confusion in battle stations worked in her favor. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with Brennan Cole. He stood with a 5-person strike team, having transported aboard during the engagement chaos. Weapons ready, moving with practiced efficiency. Your timing is impeccable, Captain. Kira fell in beside them, breathing hard. Could not let you have all the fun, Commander. Brennan fired his weapon with precision, covering their advance. Did they examine the sample? No time. Ven ordered an attack immediately. Kira checked the container. Still secure, but we need to move. This ship will be swarming with security within minutes. They fought their way towards a Zavari shuttle. Kira's combat skills proved devastating against her former comrades. She knew their tactics, their training, their weaknesses. Combined with human adaptability and suppressing fire from Brennan's team, they carved a path through the opposition. The auxiliary bay loomed ahead. 3 more guards blocked the entrance. Kira engaged directly, drawing their fire while Brennan's team flanked. The guards went down under coordinated assault. They secured a Zavari shuttle. Kira took the pilot's seat, her fingers flying across familiar controls. Brennan strapped in beside her, his team covering the bay entrance against reinforcements. Engines online. Kira's hands never stopped moving. Disengaging docking clamps now. The shuttle broke free as Zavari fighters scrambled to intercept. Kira piloted with aggressive precision, weaving through weapons fire as the Valiant provided covering salvos. Her years of tactical flight experience showed in every maneuver, but she could not simply flee. Not yet. Kira activated the shuttle's communication array, broadcasting on all Zavari military frequencies. Maximum range. Every ship, every station, every outpost within 3 light years would receive this transmission. This is Commander Kira Veyron to all Imperial vessels. Her voice rang clear, carrying authority despite her branded traitor status. I act not as a betrayer, but as a Zavari warrior sworn to protect our people. I have discovered a threat that will destroy the Empire unless we abandon pride and seek new alliances. She pulled up the Voidborn data, transmitting everything. Colony destruction footage, spatial tear analysis, energy signatures, casualty reports, the stasis pod readings showing impossible molecular structures. High Commander Ven would have you believe cooperation with humans diminishes us. But the Voidborn care nothing for our pride. They will consume us whether we stand alone or together. The only question is whether we face extinction with honor intact or survival through adaptation. Plasma fire bracketed the shuttle. Kira jinked hard, the small craft protesting. Under the ancient laws, I challenge Ven's judgment. I challenge the doctrine of isolation. I challenge any commander who would let pride destroy what they are sworn to protect. She cut the transmission as the Valiant's tractor beam locked on, pulling them into the landing bay at high speed. The shuttle barely made it inside before Zavari fighters could close the distance. The moment they docked, the Valiant jumped to FTL. Space stretched and the Sovereign fell away into the distance, unable to pursue. In the shuttle bay, Kira sat motionless for a long moment, adrenaline slowly fading. Her career in the Imperial fleet was over. She was now a wanted traitor, branded a collaborator and deserter. Everything she had built across 15 years of service, gone. Brennan's hand appeared in her field of vision, extended to help her from the pilot seat. She took it, letting him pull her to her feet. That was quite a speech, Commander. Kira managed a hollow laugh. It will not matter. Ven will spin this as human manipulation. Most of the Empire will believe him. Maybe. Brennan held her gaze. But some will not. Some will investigate. Some will listen. You planted a seed of doubt, Kira. That is worth something. Is it worth my honor, my career, my place in Zavari society? That is for you to decide. His voice was gentle. But for what it is worth, I think you chose the harder path, the braver path. You risked everything to save your people from a threat they refused to see. Kira looked down at the sample container still clutched against her chest. The crystal inside pulsed with impossible light, frozen in temporal stasis. Physical proof that the universe contained horrors beyond Zavari comprehension. Come on, Brennan gestured toward the bay exit. Dr. Aldrich is waiting to analyze that sample in a properly shielded lab. And you look like you could use rest. Kira followed him through the Valiant's corridors, acutely aware that this ship felt more like home now than any Zavari vessel ever had. The crew members they passed nodded respectfully. Chief Hayes actually offered a small salute. She was no longer tribute, no longer prisoner. But she was not Zavari anymore either. Not really. She was something new, something undefined, and the universe was far more terrifying than she had ever imagined. Part 3. The Warriors Stand, Day 21. Breakthrough. Dr. Rebecca Aldrich's laboratory aboard the Valiant hummed with equipment that had not been designed for the analysis they were attempting. Kira stood beside the containment field, watching the void-born crystal pulse with impossible light inside its quantum stasis. 2 days had passed since her escape from the Sovereign, 2 days of intensive study that had yielded more questions than answers, until now. The molecular scanner completed its latest cycle. Aldrich leaned forward, her experienced eyes widening as data scrolled across the display. Commander Veyron, you need to see this. Kira moved to her side, studying the readout. The crystal's atomic structure was not random as they had initially believed. It followed a pattern, a rhythm, like a heartbeat translated into quantum mechanics. It is vibrating. Kira's fingers flew across the Zavari analysis terminal she had integrated with the human equipment, at a specific frequency. Precise. Unchanging. Aldrich overlaid additional data. Every sample we have collected from different void-born sites shows the same frequency, down to the quantum level. It is as though they are all connected somehow, all part of the same entity, or receiving the same signal. Kira pulled up her earlier analysis from the destroyed colony. If the void-born are converting matter into this crystalline state, and all the crystals vibrate at the same frequency, then disrupting that frequency might destabilize the conversion process. Aldrich finished the thought, scientific excitement overriding her usual caution. Commander, if we could generate a counter frequency, we might be able to break down the molecular bonds, reverse the transformation, or at least stop it from spreading. Kira's mind raced through the tactical implications. Show me the power requirements for such a weapon. Aldrich worked the calculations. For a localized effect, perhaps affecting a few hundred cubic meters, the Valiant's emitter arrays could generate sufficient counter-frequency energy. But for anything larger against an active void-borne entity rather than inert crystal residue, we would need 3 times our current output. Kira completed the equation, her Zavari mathematical training making the numbers obvious, which we do not have. No, Aldrich's expression fell. We do not. But Zavari vessels do. Kira straightened, urgency flooding through her. Their new experimental amplification technology. I saw the specifications during my service. If we could link Zavari emitter systems with human modulation precision. You are proposing a joint operation. Aldrich's voice carried skepticism. Commander, after your broadcast, the Zavari Empire is hunting you. They will not cooperate. Some will. Kira was already moving toward the door. Not all Zavari commanders are as rigid as Ven. I served with officers who value pragmatism over doctrine. If I can reach them, show them this data. The ship's alarm cut through her words. Battle stations klaxon, red lights strobing. Kira and Aldrich ran for the bridge. Brennan stood at the command station, his face carved from stone as he studied the tactical display. Kira skidded to a halt beside him, her eyes going wide at what the sensors showed. A spatial tear was opening at the edge of the Kalara system. Not the small fluctuations she had tracked in historical data. This was massive, 3 kilometers across and growing, and through it something was emerging. The Voidborn. Report. Brennan's voice was ice-cold command. Lieutenant Ashford worked his console rapidly. Spatial anomaly appeared 14 minutes ago. Entity emerging matches all known Voidborn signatures but is significantly larger than previous encounters. Current mass estimates put it at 12 times the largest recorded manifestation. Kira pulled up the Kalara system data. Agricultural hub. 40,000 civilians on the primary colony world. She turned to Brennan. How long until it reaches the planet? At current velocity, 6 hours and 17 minutes. Ashford did not look up from his screens. Commander Veyron, there is a Zavari defense fleet in the system. 4 cruisers. They have detected the entity and are moving to intercept. Kira's breath caught. Which vessels? Identifying now. Ashford highlighted the signatures. Flagship is the Retribution. Commander Thane Corvus, commanding. Thane. Kira felt something loosen in her chest. Her former colleague, a tactical genius who had taught her advanced combat theory during her years as a junior officer. Pragmatic, intelligent. If any Zavari commander would listen, it was him. I need to contact him. Now, Kira looked to Brennan. Captain, I need to try. Brennan studied her face for 3 seconds, then nodded. Open a channel, Lieutenant. The view screen shifted. A male Zavari appeared, his features sharp and calculating. Steel blue skin marked with combat scars. Eyes that missed nothing. Those eyes widened slightly, seeing Kira. Kira Veyron, Thane's voice carried complex emotions. The Empire's most wanted traitor. I should destroy your vessel on sight. Commander Thane, please listen. Kira stepped forward. That entity approaching Kalara is called a Voidborn. I have physical evidence and analysis. Our weapons are useless against it, worse than useless. Conventional attacks feed its growth. But I have found a weakness, a way to fight it. I need your help, and I should believe a commander who abandoned her fleet? Who serves humans now? Kira met his gaze steadily. You taught me that tactics matter more than pride, Thane. That winning matters more than doctrine. I am not asking you to trust me. I am asking you to trust the scientific data I am about to transmit. Analyze it. If it is false, you lose nothing but 10 minutes. If it is true, you save 40,000 Zavari citizens. The pause stretched. Then Thane gave a short nod. Transmit your data. I will review it. Kira sent everything, the crystal analysis, the counter-frequency calculations, the power requirements, the proposed joint operation using linked emitter systems. Thane reviewed the information in silence. Kira watched his expression shift from skepticism to concern to grim acceptance. This data appears legitimate. He looked up. But your proposed solution requires cooperation between Zavary and human vessels, integration of our technologies. You are asking me to commit treason alongside you. I am asking you to save lives. Kira's voice rang clear. Thane, you know me. We served together for 3 years. When have I ever put personal glory ahead of mission success? Never. Thane admitted it quietly. You were always the most tactically brilliant officer I knew, which is why your defection confused me. I did not defect. I evolved. Kira gestured to the Voidborn signature growing on the tactical display. That thing does not care about Zavary pride or human ambition. It will consume us all unless we adapt. Another voice entered the transmission. Governor Lyra Sen, civilian authority for Kalara, a female Zavary with gray hair and the bearing of someone who had spent decades managing impossible situations. Commander Thane, I am monitoring this transmission. She looked directly into the camera. I have 40,000 civilians depending on the fleet's protection. If there is even a chance Commander Varon's approach could save them, I am ordering you to cooperate. Governor, I must protest. Military operations are not subject to, they are when civilian lives hang in the balance. Sen's voice brooked no argument. Follow the data, Commander. Not outdated doctrine. Thane was silent for a long moment. Then he exhaled. Very well. Commander Varon, transmit your technical specifications. My science division will coordinate with your doctor. Aldrich to modify our emitter arrays, but understand this. If you are deceiving us, if this is some human trap, I will spend the rest of my life hunting you down. Understood, Commander. Kira felt relief flood through her. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Thane's expression was grim. We still have to survive the next 6 hours. The Valiant and the Zavary fleet spent those 6 hours in frantic preparation. Dr. Aldrich and Zavary physicist Dr. Kale worked to synchronize the incompatible technologies. The solution required real-time coordination, both fleets firing in perfect harmonic sequence to generate the counter frequency at sufficient amplitude. Kira stood between the two groups, translating not just technical terminology, but cultural context. When the Zavary scientists insisted on a specific modulation approach, she explained to Aldrich the underlying mathematical philosophy. When human engineers propose adaptive algorithms, she reframed them in terms Zavary doctrine could accept. It was exhausting, necessary, the bridge between two civilizations. On the tactical front, Brennan and Thane established fleet coordination protocols. The conversations were terse, professional, two military minds setting aside political complications to focus on the immediate crisis. Kira designed the defensive formation. 5 vessels arranged in a precise geometric pattern that would create overlapping fields of fire. The Valiant at the center, its advanced targeting computers coordinating timing. The 4 Zavary cruisers at cardinal points, their superior power output providing the raw energy needed. Chief Hayes coordinated with Zavary security forces, establishing communication protocols and emergency procedures. Kira watched him work, saw the professional respect growing between former enemies as they focused on shared purpose. 3 hours before the Voidborn's projected arrival at Kalara, the preparations were complete. The combined fleet moved into position between the entity and the planet. Kira stood on the Valiant's bridge, staring at the view screen. The Voidborn was visible now even to optical sensors, a massive darkness that seemed to devour light itself. Geometric patterns shifted across its surface, impossible angles that hurt to look at directly. It was the largest manifestation humanity or the Zavary had ever encountered, and it was accelerating. All ships report ready, Captain. Ashford's voice was steady despite the tension radiating from every crew member. Brennan looked to Kira. Commander Varon, this is your operation. What are your orders? Kira took a breath, centering herself. All vessels, activate emitter arrays and lock onto the targeting solution. We fire on my mark in coordinated sequence. She pulled up the tactical overlay. The counter frequency must be sustained for a minimum of 30 seconds to achieve molecular destabilization. Do not deviate from the firing pattern, no matter what happens. Understood. Thane's voice came over the comm. Zavary fleet standing by. The Voidborn crossed into weapons range, 200,000 kilometers in closing. The entity pulsed, its surface rippling like liquid shadow. Mark. 5 ships fired as one. Energy beams lanced out, converging on the Voidborn in a precisely choreographed pattern. The beams were not trying to damage the entity through conventional means. Instead, they created a harmonic interference field, generating the counter frequency at massive amplitude. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The void-borne surface began vibrating. Its geometric patterns destabilized, edges blurring. Its forward momentum slowed as molecular bonds struggled to maintain cohesion against the resonant disruption. "It is working," Aldrich's voice carried shock. "Commander, the entity is losing mass. The conversion process is reversing. Maintain fire." Kira watched the readings. "All ships, hold formation and sustain output. 20 seconds. The Voidborn shuddered. Fragments of darkness began breaking away, dissolving into particles that scattered into space. 25 seconds. The entity's mass had decreased by 18%. Its advance had stopped completely. 30 seconds. Kira allowed herself a breath. "Cease fire. All ships stand by for..." The Voidborn exploded outward. Not destroyed, adapted. The single massive entity fragmented into 12 smaller manifestations, each one perhaps a tenth the size of the original, but moving 3 times faster. The fragments scattered, accelerating toward different vectors. All of them aimed at Kalara's orbital infrastructure. "No!" Kira's hands flew across her console. "It split. It learned from our attack." The 12 fragments bypassed the fleet, too fast and too dispersed for the defensive formation to intercept effectively. Kira watched in horror as tactical projections showed their trajectories. They were targeting Kalara's atmosphere processors, the terraforming installations that maintain the planet's breathable air. If those processors were destroyed, 40,000 colonists would suffocate within 6 hours. "We cannot target all 12 fragments simultaneously." Thane's frustration was evident. Our formation was designed for a single large target. Kira's mind raced through the tactical mathematics. 12 fragments, 5 ships, insufficient coverage. They needed more power, more coordination, or... Wait, she pulled up the fragment analysis. These are not 12 independent entities. Look at their movement patterns. Aldrich was already running the data. You are right. They are moving in coordination, maintaining exact geometric spacing, as though they are still connected somehow, because they are. Kira highlighted one specific fragment, slightly larger than the others. This one, fragment 7, it is at the geometric center of their formation. It is directing the others, a core fragment. Brennan stepped beside her. Destroy it and the others collapse? Theory only. But it fits the evidence. Kira ran projections. The problem is fragment 7's trajectory. It is heading for the largest atmosphere processor, heavily shielded, positioned at the planet's northern pole. The fragment will reach it in 8 minutes. Once inside the installation's defensive perimeter, we cannot risk firing without causing catastrophic damage to the processor itself. Then we intercept it before it reaches the installation. Thane's tactical mind was already working the problem. A precision strike. 1 ship, maximum velocity, direct approach. Kira calculated the numbers. The fragment's speed and defensive adaptations would make a successful attack nearly impossible. The attacking vessel would need to penetrate heavy void-borne resistance, deliver a killing blow, and escape before the explosion. The survival probability was less than 30%. "It is a suicide mission," she said it quietly. "Then we need a volunteer." Brennan's voice was steady. "Someone who understands the tactical requirements and is willing to take the risk." Kira straightened. "I will do it." She met Brennan's eyes. "I can pilot a Zavari interceptor. I know their systems. I understand void-borne behavior from the crystal analysis. I am the most qualified person for this mission." Brennan opened his mouth to object. Kira cut him off. "Captain, you taught me that good leaders do not ask their people to take risks they would not take themselves." She smiled slightly. "I learned that lesson well." Before Brennan could respond, another voice spoke up. Chief Hayes stepped forward from his security station. "Begging your pardon, Commander, but you are not doing this alone. Someone needs to handle weapons targeting while you pilot." "I volunteer." "Chief, you do not need to," Kira began. "With respect, ma'am, yes I do." Hayes' expression was resolute. "You taught me what honor really means when you protected those civilians on the transport rescue. When you risked everything to warn your people about the Voidborn. Let me return the favor." Kira looked at this human warrior who had hated her 3 weeks ago. saw the determination in his eyes, the respect earned through shared purpose. Very well, Chief Hayes. We go together. Brennan stepped close, his voice low enough for only Kira to hear. Come back, Commander. That is an order. I will do my best, Captain. She held his gaze. But if I do not, continue the alliance. Make sure my people and yours stand together. That is worth more than one life. She turned away before emotion could compromise her focus. The Zavari Interceptor was a sleek killing machine, designed for speed and precision strikes. Kira strapped into the pilot seat while Hayes took the weapon station behind her. The cockpit was cramped, forcing them into close proximity. Interceptor Talon to Valiant. Kira ran through the pre-flight checklist with practiced efficiency. All systems nominal. Ready for launch. Acknowledged, Talon. Brennan's voice carried weight. Good hunting. The Interceptor shot from the Valiant's bay like a missile, Kira pushing the engines to maximum acceleration immediately. G-forces crushed them back into their seats as velocity climbed past safety limits. Fragment 7 was visible ahead, a sphere of impossible darkness racing toward Kalara's northern pole. 8 minutes had become 6. They needed to intercept before it reached the atmosphere processor's defensive perimeter. Kira flew with everything she had learned from 15 years of Zavari combat experience, merged with human adaptability. The Interceptor danced through space, weaving an unpredictable approach pattern that frustrated the fragment's defensive responses. Incoming. Hayes called out as tendrils of darkness lashed toward them. Kira jinked hard, the Interceptor's frame protesting. A tendril grazed their port wing. An alarm screamed as the hull began converting to crystal. Emergency purge. Kira triggered the damage control systems. The affected section explosively separated, sacrificing part of their armor to prevent the conversion from spreading. Still flying, Hayes' voice was admirably calm. Range to target, 40,000 kilometers. Kira pushed the engines harder. The fragment was adapting, its defenses growing more aggressive. More tendrils lashed out. She evaded with precision that defied probability, her hands and the flight controls moving as one. 20,000 kilometers. The fragment began emitting pulses of distorted gravity, trying to disrupt their approach. The Interceptor bucked and shuddered. Hold on. Kira inverted their flight path using the gravity distortions to slingshot them faster rather than slow down. A maneuver that would have been suicidal by conventional doctrine. But these were not conventional circumstances. 10,000 kilometers. Hayes armed the quantum charge. It was a Zavari weapon designed to create a temporary singularity that would collapse anything within its radius. Against the Voidborn's molecular instability, it should prove devastating. Should. Theory had failed them before. 5,000 kilometers. The atmosphere processor loomed ahead, Fragment 7 mere seconds from entering its defensive zone. Now. Kira rolled the Interceptor hard, presenting their belly to the fragment. Hayes, fire everything! The quantum charge launched alongside every conventional weapon the Interceptor carried. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic rounds, a concentrated barrage that would have destroyed any normal target. Fragment 7 absorbed the conventional weapons, growing slightly larger. Then the quantum charge detonated, space twisted, reality bent inward around the fragment as artificial gravity crushed it toward the singularity center. The void-born matter resisted, its impossible physics fighting the fundamental forces of the universe. For 3 eternal seconds, the outcome hung in balance. Then Fragment 7 collapsed, imploded, shattered into particles that the singularity consumed before winking out of existence. On the tactical displays across the combined fleet, the other 11 fragments simultaneously destabilized. Without their core directing them, their cohesion failed. They broke apart, dissolving into inert crystal dust that scattered harmlessly through space. The Voidborn was destroyed, but the explosion had not been clean. The quantum charge's shockwave caught the Interceptor, already damaged and too close to escape. Systems failed across the board. Hull integrity compromised, life support failing. Kira fought the controls, trying to stabilize their tumbling flight. The atmosphere processor's defensive grid was triggering, automated weapons locking onto their damaged craft as a potential threat. Mayday. Hayes transmitted. Interceptor Talon to all vessels. Mission successful, but we are hit, losing power, unable to maneuver. The defensive weapons charged to fire. Then the Valiant was there, having burned across space at maximum velocity. Brennan's ship interposed itself between the interceptor and the automated defenses, shields absorbing the fire meant for them. A tractor beam locked onto the Talon, pulling them toward the safety of the landing bay. Kira let herself slump in the pilot seat, adrenaline crash leaving her shaking. Hayes was laughing, the sound edged with hysteria. "We did it," he gasped. "We actually did it." "We did," Kira managed. Her shoulder throbbed where the earlier impact had bruised her. Her hands were steady on the controls despite exhaustion. "But yes, we survived." The interceptor settled into the Valiant's bay. Medical teams swarmed the moment the canopy opened. Kira waved them off, climbing out under her own power. Hayes followed, both of them battered but functional. Brennan was waiting. His expression spoke volumes he did not voice. "Well done, Commander." "Chief, just doing our duty, sir." Hayes straightened despite obvious exhaustion. Kira met Brennan's eyes. "The Alliance held, Captain. Zavari and human crews working together. We proved it could be done." "Yes," Brennan's voice was quiet. "You did. Resolution, new beginning." The aftermath unfolded over the following hours. Governor Sen invited both fleet commanders to Kalara's surface for a formal ceremony. The planetary government chambers had been hastily prepared for an event nobody had dared imagine days before. Kira stood in dress uniform borrowed from Zavari supplies, feeling the weight of ceremony settle over her shoulders. Beside her, Brennan wore his formal captain's jacket. They represented their peoples before gathered witnesses, both human and Zavari. Governor Sen addressed the assembly, her voice carrying across the chamber and transmitted throughout the system. "Today marks a turning point in our history. The Voidborn threatened to destroy 40,000 innocent lives. Instead, we survived through cooperation that would have been unthinkable mere weeks ago." She turned to Kira and Brennan. "Commander Kira Varen and Captain Brennan Cole have demonstrated that our peoples are stronger together than divided. They have earned the highest recognition we can offer." Two aides brought forward medals on velvet cushions. The Star of Unity, newly created for this moment. Platinum stars encircled by linked chains, representing cooperation stronger than any single link. Sen placed the first medal around Kira's neck. "For tactical brilliance, courage, and sacrifice in defense of those you were sworn to protect, even when that protection required you to challenge everything you had known." The second medal went to Brennan. "For wisdom in recognizing that former enemies can become allies. For trust offered when suspicion would have been easier." The chamber erupted in applause, human cheers mixing with Zavari battle cries transformed into celebration. Commander Thane approached afterward, his expression complex. "Kira Varen, you were right about adaptation over doctrine, about survival over pride." He extended his hand. "The Zavari Defense Fleet pledges cooperation with the Human Alliance. We will face the Voidborn together." Kira clasped his hand. "Thank you, Thane." Those two words carried more weight than any speech. Chief Hayes found her later, a rare smile on his scarred face. "Commander, I just wanted to say, my sister Emily would have liked you. You remind me of her." Same stubborn courage. Kira felt unexpected emotion tighten her throat. "That means more to me than you know, Chief." The formal alliance treaty was signed that evening. Earth and the Zavari Empire entering into joint defense pact against the Voidborn threat, research cooperation, combined fleet exercises, cultural exchange programs, the foundation of something new. Later that night, Kira stood in the Valiant's observation deck, staring out at Kalara's lights twinkling below. Deep space scans displayed on her personal datapad showed the truth she had not shared during the celebration. More spatial tears were forming across the sector. More Voidborn signatures emerging, smaller manifestations, but spreading in multiple directions. The entity they had destroyed at Kalara was just one tendril of a much larger threat. Brennan joined her, two glasses in hand. He offered her one. "Human whiskey. Thought you might appreciate it after today." Kira took the glass, sipping cautiously. The liquid burned pleasantly. "Thank you, Brennan." He gestured to the viewport. "You are looking at the deep space scans. More Voidborn are coming." She showed him the data. "This was just the beginning." "I know." His expression was serious. "But now we face them together. Zavari tactical brilliance combined with human adaptability. Shared resources and knowledge. We have a chance we did not have before. Do we?" Kira studied the distant stars. Or are we just delaying the inevitable? Brennan was quiet for a moment. Then he raised his glass. To fighting the inevitable with everything we have. Together. Kira touched her glass to his. Together. Below them, human and Zavari crews worked side by side in the tactical bay, analyzing the Kalara battle data. Lieutenant Ashford was teaching Zavari officers human tactical philosophy while learning Zavari combat theory in return. Dr. Aldrich and Dr. Kale continued their work on counter-frequency refinements. The alliance was real, imperfect, fragile, but real. Kira's personal communicator chimed. A message from the Zavari Defense Fleet. Other commanders were responding to her broadcast, requesting information, offering cautious support. The seeds she had planted were taking root. The path ahead would be difficult. The Voidborn threat was real and growing. Political opposition would challenge the alliance from both sides. Old hatreds would not vanish overnight. But standing here with Brennan, watching the combined fleet patrol in formation outside the viewport, Kira allowed herself something she had not felt since her defeat 3 weeks ago. Hope. She thought back to that first day. Kneeling on the Valiant's deck, begging for mercy, expecting only humiliation and exploitation. Instead, she had found respect, purpose, a new understanding of what strength truly meant. Brennan, she said quietly, do you remember what you told me that first day? On my ship, we do not kneel. He smiled slightly. I remember. You were right. Kira met his eyes. True strength does not come from making others kneel. It comes from lifting them up. From recognizing that cooperation multiplies power rather than dividing it. Sounds like you have learned a few things, Commander. I have learned everything. She touched the Star of Unity medal at her throat. I came to your ship seeking weaknesses to exploit. Instead, I found the greatest strength I never knew existed. Not in weapons or tactics, but in trust freely given between former enemies. Your broadcast reached more commanders than we initially knew. Brennan pulled up intelligence reports on his datapad. 3 more Zavari fleet groups have requested alliance coordination protocols. The Empire is listening, even if High Commander Ven refuses to acknowledge it. Then perhaps my people have hope after all. Below them, Chief Hayes laughed at something Dr. Aldrich said, the sound carrying through the open comm channel. The man who had lost his sister to Zavari weapons now worked alongside Zavari scientists without hesitation. The change was remarkable. Kira reflected on her own transformation. From rigid military doctrine to adaptive strategy. From seeing humans as weak enemies to recognizing them as essential allies. From begging for mercy to commanding the respect of 2 civilizations. The warrior who had knelt 3 weeks ago no longer existed. In her place stood someone who had learned the hardest lesson of all. That true courage required the willingness to change, to question everything you thought you knew, to stand alone if necessary in defense of what was right. You know, Brennan said thoughtfully, when I first accepted your tribute offer, I had no idea what I was getting into. Kira laughed. Neither did I, Captain. I thought I would learn your weaknesses and return to help destroy you. And instead? Instead, I learned that strength and weakness are not what I thought, that the Zavari way is incomplete, that my people need to evolve or face extinction. She gestured to the stars beyond the viewport. The Voidborn do not care about our pride or traditions. They do not negotiate or respect military prowess. They simply consume. The only way to survive is to adapt faster than they do, which is why this alliance matters. Brennan's voice carried conviction. Separately, our peoples brought different strengths. Together, we multiply those strengths exponentially. Kira nodded. The counter-frequency weapon proved that. Zavari power combined with human precision. Neither of us could have developed it alone. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the Alliance fleet maintain formation around Kalara. 5 ships that represented the first real cooperation between their peoples. A fragile beginning, but a beginning nonetheless. What happens now? Kira asked. The Voidborn will return. This was just one battle. Now we prepare. Brennan's tone was pragmatic. We expand the alliance. Bring more Zavari commanders into the fold. Develop better weapons. Train combined crews. Build infrastructure for sustained cooperation. And if High Commander Ven interferes, then we deal with him. Kira's voice carried steel. I challenged his judgment publicly. Other commanders are questioning him. Even in the Zavari Empire, absolute authority has limits when lives are at stake. You have changed their world, you know, Brennan observed. Whether they acknowledge it or not, you have forced the Empire to confront the fact that isolation is suicide. I have simply shown them what I learned from you. That strength comes in many forms. That leaders serve their people, not the other way around. That trust and cooperation achieve more than dominance and fear. She finished her whiskey, the warmth spreading through her chest. 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew everything about command, about warfare, about what it meant to be Zavari. Now I realize I knew nothing at all. That is wisdom, Commander. Recognizing how much you still have to learn, Kira smiled. Then I must be the wisest fool in two civilizations. Because the more I learn, the more I realize how vast my ignorance truly is. Brennan raised his glass one final time, to wisdom born of humility, to alliances forged in crisis, to two peoples learning to stand together against the darkness. Kira touched her glass to his, the gesture now comfortable and natural. To survival through adaptation, to strength through unity, to whatever comes next. They drank, sealing the toast. Through the viewport, a new shift of crew members arrived in the tactical bay. Human and Zavari working together without hesitation, the initial awkwardness already fading into professional routine. It was a small thing, but significant. The future was uncertain. The void-born threat loomed larger than ever. Political challenges awaited both in the Zavari Empire and human space. There would be setbacks, conflicts, moments of doubt. But standing here in this moment, Kira felt certain of one thing. They had a chance, not a guarantee, not an easy path, but a real possibility of survival through cooperation that neither civilization could achieve alone. She thought of the girl she had saved on the transport rescue, of Chief Hayes learning to see past his hatred, of Commander Thane choosing pragmatism over pride, of Governor Sen demanding action to protect her people, of Dr. Aldrich and Dr. Kale bridging scientific philosophies to create something new. All of them, human and Zavari, choosing to evolve rather than cling to old certainties. That was the real victory, not the destroyed Voidborn, though that mattered. The true achievement was proving that change was possible, that former enemies could become allies, that cooperation could overcome doctrine. Kira Varen, once defeated commander of the Zavari Imperial Fleet, now stood as architect of an alliance that would determine the fate of two civilizations. She had begged for mercy once, expecting only defeat and submission. Instead, she had found redemption, forged partnerships, and discovered that the strongest warriors were those brave enough to evolve. The stars stretched infinite and beautiful beyond the viewport, no longer divided into human space and Zavari territory, but unified by shared purpose and common threat. Kira was ready for whatever came next, and she would face it standing beside allies she had earned through courage, sacrifice, and the willingness to change everything she thought she knew. The warrior's surrender had become the warrior's triumph, not through victory in battle, but through the harder conquest of transforming herself and, in doing so, transforming the relationship between two peoples. Brennan glanced at her. "What are you thinking, Commander?" Kira smiled, genuine and unburdened. "I am thinking that 3 weeks ago, I knelt on your deck and begged for mercy. Today, I stand as an equal partner in an alliance that might save us all. The journey from one to the other has been the hardest thing I have ever done. Harder than any battle? Much harder." Kira's voice was soft because it required surrendering not to an enemy, but to the possibility that everything I believed was wrong. That took more courage than facing any weapon. And now I know that surrender and strength are not opposites. Sometimes the strongest thing a warrior can do is admit they were wrong and choose a better path. She looked out at the stars one last time, then turned to Brennan with quiet confidence. "The Voidborn are coming, Captain, but we will be ready. Together we stand. Divided we fall. I learned that from you." Brennan smiled. "And I learned from you that the most dangerous opponents are those willing to question everything, including themselves." They left the observation deck together, returning to the bridge where their crews awaited. Human and Zavari personnel working side by side, building something unprecedented. The alliance was young, fragile, untested beyond this single victory. But it was real, and Kira Varen, the defeated warrior who had begged for mercy, now stood ready to defend it with everything she had learned from both her peoples. The greatest battles still lay ahead. But for the first time since her surrender, Kira faced the future not with fear or shame, but with hope forged in the crucible of cooperation. She had learned that true strength came not from domination, but from connection. Not from perfection, but from adaptation. Not from pride, but from humility. And she would carry those lessons into whatever darkness awaited, standing alongside allies who had taught her what it meant to be truly strong. The warrior's surrender was complete. The warrior's triumph had just begun.